So in March of 2012, we were working on a next generation console game.
It was really exciting, but it was a lot of work, and unfortunately, the game got canceled.
With these larger budgets, when you crash hard. And for a company the size of Obsidian to have, like a project canceled like that, it had a big impact on us financially.
It was really kind of sad, and so we, trying to pick ourselves up and figure out what we wanted to do, and we're kind of tossing around ideas. We tried to pitch that game again, with kind of changing the world and things like that. But what it comes down to is what are we gonna do about it? And the first thing is, well, we got to lay people off.
We're watching dozens of people clearing out their desks and leaving. A lot of people who had worked here for years and years. It really sucks in those circumstances because in some cases you have to lay off people who, they're great. Firing or letting people go is just horrible. I mean, you talk to anybody who runs a business, it's just bad. And for me and the other guys that run Obsidian, it's doubly bad because it's a public statement of failure.
It's terrible for the people still at the studio as well because, now we don't have a project to work on. That's what we do here. We work on projects. And when you don't have a project, you feel like a lost soul, kind of.
But what's hard about it is that when we do a layoff, it's public. People know, all the publishers know, and we lose 2 points. We lose 5 points. We obviously, because it was obviously our fault, because that's the thing, right? It's like, well, we're the company that had to go through the pain, so we are the ones who must have failed.
And as the months went by after that cancellation and we still didn't get a project, it got worse and worse and worse. And we kind of had a date in mind where we're like, if we pass this date, then we're basically screwed, because we were basically going to run out of money.
Having this happen makes it even harder to go get the next thing so that I can keep on paying the people and keep everybody employed that's still at the company even after the layoff.
We were all kind of, just coming to work just to come to work. We weren't actually working on anything.
I think for weeks after that, people were just really in a funk, and like I said, we were trying to get back into the rhythm of pitching to publishers and going and talking to publishers, but we had just been burned really badly, and it really made it difficult to go out and have high hopes for what we were going to do.
So whenever that happens, I mean, you eventually have to get to, like, what do? You eventually get to, like, screw it. Let's pack up the bags, let's turn the lights off, or you go, okay, what are we gonna do about it?
Chris Avalone and I think a few other people at the office, we were kind of discussing like, oh, we should do a Kickstarter, but nothing really got off the ground.
I had been looking at Kickstarter for a while personally, but a lot of other people had as well. I think Nathaniel Chapman, a guy who used to work here, actually was one of the biggest proponents of trying to use it for game development.
There's a few projects. I think there was a dice game that made like 200 grand on Kickstarter. We were just laughing about it. We're like, oh, we should put our game up on Kickstarter. Let's see what happens. If a dice game could make 200 grand, that means that there's something there.
And we talked about it, and then Double Fine did the Double Fine Adventure Kickstarter, and that pretty much said, yes, you can do it.
Because I think they made like $1 million in a day on Kickstarter. And so we were kind of like, holy crap.
It was so amazing to hear what the guys at Double Fine were able to do, just because it was like, wow, we could do this.
It reached a certain point where I said to the owners, if I can't be involved in it, that's fine, but we should do it.
Like, he went to Fergus and said, we have to do a Kickstarter right now. Like, this is the time to do it, and you should put Adam on the project.
And then Chris Parker, one of the other owners here at Obsidian, he came and said, why don't we just tell them to do it?
So it was just me for, I want to say 2 months. and I was tasked to put together the pitch and kind of generate game ideas and kind of get all that together.
And at that point, it was Adam and Josh talking about it and figuring out what we could do and kind of even off in their own little world for a little while.
That day of doom that I was talking about earlier, that day of doom was fast approaching. So we had to hit it out of the park. The first thing I did was kind of got the leads of the studio together. I did a few different meetings, brainstorming meetings.
And we're like, you know, we've always wanted to go back and kind of make one of these traditional RPGs.
And in one of the meetings, I think it was a meeting with Fergus, Darren, Tim Kane, Josh, and Chris Avalone. I think 3 of us kind of had the same idea.
I said, you know, hey, why don't we make a game that feels like 2nd edition D&D Forgotten Realms? Party-based, you make one character, you add companions into the story, like Baldur's Gate. It has that exploration feel where you're kind of out exploring the wilderness and finding all these little adventure locations, and you're tied into this personal story that affects the larger world.
I think people were on board with the high concept idea of bringing back the spirit of the Infinity Engine games. That's another thing with Kickstarter, is nostalgia is a big thing with Kickstarter. A lot of our fans were looking for this type of game. This type of game wasn't made for 10 plus years.
And so it was sort of like a double thing. Like, it got us to go make something something more traditional, something we love, but also now something we get to own.
So after that PowerPoint presentation, you know, the owners approved the concept of the game. So that was like a 3-week process of coming up with the pitch, the script for the pitch, editing it, and filming it.
Hi Kickstarters, I'm Fergus Urquhart, the founder of Black Owl Studios and the CEO and founder of Obsidian Entertainment. We've spent years putting a whole group of people together who love making role-playing games and are really the best guys on the planet to do it. We're excited to talk to you today about...
After we launched, it was sort of like, you don't even know, and I was talking to Brian Fargo about this, and, you know, they did Torment, which actually earned a little bit more than Eternity. And, you know, they went out, it's like, well, what's gonna happen, you know, and you hope that you have a good idea, and it's even like when you're launching a game, you don't always know.
We were making bets to see how much we would make in the first day, and a lot of us didn't think that we would make more than $100,000. And I think by the time I hit refresh, so I put it up there and I hit refresh and we already made like $800, like in 10 seconds.
You know, that morning I was hopeful but kind of skeptical. And when it launched and it started getting money, I was like, oh, okay, cool. People are looking at it and they're giving money, but I didn't really perceive the rate that it was going up.
So I'd go into someone's office and I'm talking to them about a thing, and they were just sitting there with F5 on the Kickstarter page going, hit it. They're like, another 5,000. Another 5,000, you know, and I would have these short conversations with people, like 5 minutes, and they're like, we just made $5,000, and you know, and we all went out for beers, you know, that night, and I think, you know, by the time everybody kind of went home and things like that, I think we'd already gotten like $750,000 or $800,000.
We reached the initial goal, I think, in 27 hours.
Basically, like, a lot of us felt like we saved the company. Like, it was probably the best day in Obsidian's history. We basically just sat and watch that number all day. And
then, you know, it was about middle of the next day where we hit 1 million, and a couple hours later that we hit 1.1. And a lot of it is like, we weren't prepared.
Hey everybody, 1.5 million. Pretty darn amazing. Thank you everyone who's contributed so far.
Once we passed $2 million, I said, okay, we're really making this game and it's really gonna be pretty big. And the thing is, it had been kind of exhausting to that point, but it was not anything compared to what the next month was going to be.
Because it meant, oh, we all have to be in this weekend because we need stretch goals and we need this and we need that and we need to be communicating.
We were really overwhelmed by how much money came pouring in. We were kind of expecting it to be high, but not that high and not that fast. And so people really demanded stretch goals right away.
So the stretch goal is a way of saying, okay, this is funded. Do you want more of this stuff? But we did not have those nailed down at all. So the next morning, got up, ate, went to work, and we all just got in the lounge and we're like, okay, I guess people want us to make this game. What else are they going to want us to make?
Our fans have a kind of conceived notion of how big these types of games are, just based on the games like Baldur's Gate and Baldur's Gate 2, Icewind Dale. They have, they expect at least a 40 to 100 hour game, like tons of content.
All of us were in a lot of ways scrambling. I mean, and hopefully what it looked like from the outside is that, wow, we had our crap together. On the inside, it didn't always feel that way.
And people noticed, like some people would say, like, it sounds like you guys are just kind of making stuff up as you go along. And I'm like, well, like, I kind of am. And they're like, well, why isn't this all thought out? Because that's why we're kickstarting it.
It was really learning every day, like how do you run a Kickstarter? Like, how do you run a campaign? Because that's ultimately what a Kickstarter is. Like, none of us have ever run a political campaign or anything like that, but it's almost, a Kickstarter is almost like that.
Well, so normally, if we were developing a game, we would develop the pitch and take it to the publisher, and then in pre-production, we have all that time in pre-production to think about all the details, and we can kind of ruminate on it. There's a luxury in Kickstarter. You don't have time to do that. It's pretty nerve-wracking. So usually when I design settings and I design worlds, I go at a very slow pace because I do things like write orthography for languages, like fictional languages. I research a lot and do a lot of things over time, but I needed to suddenly just turn things around, almost, not quite daily, but very rapidly. My next update will actually be about mechanics. Today I wanted to talk about the souls and the technology stuff.
So the final few days of the Kickstarter, we were pushing towards kind of the highest amount that a game ever made with Kickstarter.
We made almost as much the last day as we made the first day.
It was crazy. We had asked for $1.1 million and gotten 3.9 plus anything in the PayPal. So
the company was so behind it and everybody was excited. I think we had like 100,000 or more people on Twitch watching us. I think there was even a press guy on, I think it was PC Gamer Online. He even said, that was his whole thing. It was like, wow, it was just fun to be there with them and everybody else.
We were so excited that it was distracting to the other teams at Obsidian.
3, 2, 1,
We weren't wondering if we were going to make our goal. We'd already made our goal. We'd already made our goal 3 times over, and so everything at that point was just gravy, and it just meant we could make the game even better.
1, we didn't think we were going to be able to make a game like this again. 2, we were worried about the state of the company before we started the Kickstarter. We were looking and saying, like, we're a bunch of people right now that are not bringing in money from a team that we're the remnants of people after the layoffs had happened. So from really, really low morale to probably the highest I've ever seen the morale at the company.
We finally kind of got off that treadmill. I always kind of say that when I'm talking to people, is that as an independent developer, we're on this treadmill and we're just kind of treading water. This was like the opportunity for us to jump off that treadmill and kind of run at our own pace.
Now we have, in essence, our backers during the development of this. And it's serious to us because they've already given their money, so we owe them. Like, it's our responsibility that we hold up our end of the bargain as much as we can.
We're gonna see if we can do it. Yeah. There's a lot of pressure on us. Obsidian and our team has a responsibility to our backers and to Kickstarter and for the future of Kickstarter to actually produce a game that's good and produce something that people will enjoy so that people trust Kickstarter and people will trust us so we can continue working on games like this. It's all on us right now. It's, there's not a publisher involved. There's not a whole lot of outside influences involved. It's our game. It's our time to shine. So it's our time to step up to the plate and make sure that we can hit a home run.